Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today, yet again, we have a very special guest joining us, our producer and cryptozoology specialist, Michael. Michael,
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Cryptozoology, not cryptocurrency.
Right. Got a lot of kind of misguided questions last time. Doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency, but if you have any legendary animals that you would like to talk about, then Michael is very receptive and responsive to your questions. And he is by far the best cryptozoology expert within at least, I'm going to say about 2 miles, because we had a new person move in that's really into Loch Ness, and they do their work.
Yeah.
But anyway, neither here nor there. So it's good to see everybody in the chat today. Great to have Zam, Victor, and everybody else who's there. So if you have a question, please make sure to shout it out in the chat. If it doesn't get answered during the session, you can always leave it on the YouTube channel, because that's where we go to find the questions that we're going to be answering for the segment. We always have such good questions that we don't want to just like reply to the comment and have nobody else really see it. Like, it's better to, shout out the question if it's a really good one and answer it in full on the stream. So we're going to keep doing the stream as long as you guys like it. I really enjoy checking in with everyone, and frankly, answering your questions is a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one.
Okay, so the first one we had was, what is that tracker thing? I believe he's referring to Alex Lynn's, it's not the creep detector, it's the other one.
The ESP bug?
The ESP bug, yes.
Okay,
I believe that's what they're referring to.
All right, so the ESP bug is a really interesting project by our good friend Alex Lynn. And what it is designed to do is hide inside like a charger or something else and be able to detect the proximity of a device. Now, there's a couple libraries in Arduino IDE that allow you to take advantage of this proximity style detection. And that means that you're basically monitoring the signal strength and detecting when a device gets close enough to the like the little D1 Mini or something like this that use an ESP8266. As soon as a device gets really close to it, you can send a notification or do something about it. And what Alex Lynn has done is really expand on that concept by making a full-on web interface that this thing will publish to. So this is also able to distinguish between different types of devices. So let's say that you have a certain device that you want to keep track of. Well, if you know where that person is pretty frequently, like their home or their office, you could plant one of these in a charger, and then anytime that device associated with the Wi-Fi network and the phone, let's say the smartphone, got really close to that charger, you would know that that person was in the office in a particular room even. So what's smart about this also is there's a little bit of privacy built into modern smartphones called MAC address randomization. So what this means is your smartphone will constantly change its MAC address as it connects to networks. But in order to be able to not be like kicked out of networks all the time because it's seen as a new device, it will pick a random MAC address per network. So it'll have the same like randomized MAC address every time it connects to each individual network, but if it's connecting to some totally other network, it'll come up with a new random MAC address and then only use that one for that individual network, if that makes sense. So basically what we're going to do here is listen for this one, we're designing something. Listen for this one individual device and tell someone when they are in range. So basically, if we have the target that connects to this Wi-Fi network and they come into the room, we should be able to see this on a web interface no matter where we are. And it means that we don't need to, persistently sit outside and track them. This is like a little bug, I guess, that sits there and watches for one particular device. Michael, can you think of some other applications for this?
Well, you kind of already touched on the tracking aspect, but I was thinking it would be really cool if you could like compromise like smart lights or any other IoT device that has ESPs in them, and then you could easily like pretty granularly tell where a person is in a building just based on the received signal intensity.
Yeah, so if you had like a series of these, you could actually probably tell what part of the building someone was in and be able to track them on a much more granular
And you could do some calibration, like just walking around, standing at known points with a smartphone, and then build kind of like a grid that way. Otherwise, you could just use the received signal strength to do like a circle around where each one is and then kind of triangulate that way. Okay.
Oh, well, hold on. So we have a comment from Zam, which is he read an interesting paper on the algorithms used to randomize MAC addresses. Was it published by the U.S. Navy, Zam? Because if so, then we read the same paper, and it is actually super interesting. So there was a couple different papers on the way that devices randomize their MAC addresses, and one of the best ones was done by like the U.S. Naval Academy, I think. And it's fascinating to see the way that these random MAC addresses are created, because some of them are not really that random at all, and sometimes they're not actually changed that frequently. So this paper's a tiny bit out of date because I remember first reading it like 4 years ago or so. So there's probably some more up-to-date ones. But there are some really interesting reads on the way that these random MAC addresses are chosen, because it turns out a lot of them are not actually that random, and it's still very possible to track devices by this. So it's really interesting out there. And this isn't so much a question, but it should be. Hey, Cody, please continue uploading videos on Nullbyte.
That is actually...
If this had a question mark, I would say, no, we can't, because unfortunately, Nullbyte is in the process of being sold to someone. So I do not own Nullbyte. I never have. Nullbyte was owned by a company I worked for briefly, and then started basically running the YouTube for independently. And it looks like they are selling company to someone. I don't know who, and because of that, nobody knows what's really going to happen with Nullbyte. But if you want to continue seeing new content, then check out Hackbyte on Hack5, because that's where we've launched a new show, and we are releasing new content on a weekly basis.
Every Thursday?
Yeah, so Michael just released one on using Postman to discover APIs. I'm going to be releasing one on using someone's smartphone to actually crack like their Office or Wi-Fi password by like getting a half handshake out of it and then cracking that. So there's going to be lots of new content available on the Hackbyte channel on Hack5. So make sure to check that out if you miss Nullbyte content, because we miss making content for Nullbyte, so we kept doing it, but we can't put it on the Nullbyte channel anymore because they're selling it to someone. And also, if there were a bunch of people who reached out to me who are interested in, maybe buying Nullbyte, and it was just, I appreciate all the interest and stuff. Again, I have no control over it, so it's going somewhere. I guess we'll find out, but we aren't able to do those live streams that we used to do anymore on Nullbyte, unfortunately, which were a lot of fun because we had like hundreds of people in the chat, and it was crazy. But hopefully we'll be able to do something similar on Hack5 in the future.
So the complimentary question to that also from the channel was, why don't we switch to other platforms, alternatives to YouTube? And also,
many reasons.
Why not?
Many reasons. One, because we reach new people through making content that's accessible to lots of people. So like we love making like educational resources, but we're not a school, and we're not trying to be. So, while we do have some classes on specific topics, we don't really see ourselves as people that are like going to get like be a substitution for like actually going to a networking class or something like that. We can get you started and we can point you in the right direction, but we're not a full-on supplement for that. We do a lot better when we're getting new people and getting them into cybersecurity by making it accessible, and that's where staying on some of these mainstream platforms comes into play. We also don't have that many problems with them. There's a lot of other people that have a lot worse problems with them. So we've been able to keep our content such that most of the time we do okay on those platforms. And a second problem is there's just a lot of really terrible content on some of these other platforms that are completely unregulated. When I do investigations into like sketchy like far right organizations, I often find that they have their home on these sorts of platforms. So sometimes when we're trying to get young, new people into our content, like I don't want to push them towards platforms where there's a lot of like really like sketchy extremist stuff on there as well. It just feels a little bit weird to put our content right next to a bunch of content that's been taken off the internet and other places for spreading misinformation or being like malicious. So, I mean, it's just one of those decisions. Also, we often don't control where our content goes because, for example, this show we produce with Verona. So, like, they're probably not going to want to put it, like, on something where, it's, I don't know. It's just like a weird backup place to put it. So, again, we don't really get taken down that much anymore. But in general, like, it only is for the kind of stuff that's really, really on the borderline of normal people might not think it's okay. Like specific instructions for how to hack like a type of business that's currently vulnerable and you could get away with. Like that's the kind of stuff we generally shy away from, and that's the only kind of stuff we would really need to go to an alternative platform to show. So
okay, the next question we had, and this is going to be an audience poll here, is am I the only one who thinks Martin Wallstrom is so much alike Cody K that...
Who?
I'll show you. Hold up, give me a second.
Am I going to be mad?
Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like I'm going to be bad about this.
Okay, this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tyrell. Just say Tyrell Wellick.
Tyrell, yeah.
That's like, I don't know how to take that, but I'll take it. Like Tyrell Wellick was like a great character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can confirm.
100%. 100%.
That
Like,
is definitely.
I am not
how it-
offended. I'm not offended at all.
Who is there was one you get really offended
The
about.
thing is,
though.
the problem is like I don't dress that well. So if I was going to be compared to that dude in any way, shape, or form, I would really need to step up my game. So you could tell like I worked for a corporation and was like a little bit evil.
This is Cody's more corporate evil twin, basically.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if I got like a better haircut and like like wasn't roughing it in these like free conference shirts, then I might be able to aspire to that. But thank you. That was actually that made my day. I was really worried it was going to be like the sweaty like fat hacker guy from like Die Hard or Die Hard with a Vengeance or whatever.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
And then, did you see one in the chat you wanted to do?
So, can I work with you on some cool projects, like any kind of research that you're working on? So, I mean, if you want to jump in on something, jump in. If you if you have something to contribute on Wi-Fi and microcontrollers in particular, that's what I'm really especially interested in. Really, what I'm focused on is building CTFs that are easy for people to learn and play, so you can learn how to detect and attack devices on networks in a safe environment that's totally legal and like kind of gives you the understanding of how to use the tools. There's a lot of ways to do this, and I think it's a really interesting and cool area. And another area I'm really interested in is using Matthew Van Hoff's research into Wi-Fi vulnerabilities to create active proof of concepts using microcontrollers. So what I'm working on right now is being able to send beacon frames that have a custom data rate. So I can basically throttle people's connections by sending individual devices, like targeted frames that are only going to them, saying, hey, by the way, the speed limit for this network is super, super slow. So that they basically are soft kicked off the network by no longer being able to use it while they're still actually connected. And these sorts of attacks are really difficult to detect, and that's why I'm really interested in bringing them to a cheaper and lower cost platform, because deauthentication and disassociation attacks are old news, like they're really easy to detect, and a lot of people are already looking for that. If you're just sending specific beacon frames to one device, nobody else should even be able to be affected by that. So it's a really sneaky targeted attack that I'm looking at developing a proof of concept for. So that's what I'm working on. If you want to read any of Matthew Van Hoff's papers, if you know Scapy, that would also be very useful. Or if you know anything about wireless Wi-Fi microcontrollers, then all that stuff is good. But I mean, that's what I'm working on. So, all right. What do you got?
Okay. So, could we do a series on OPSEC, or operational security, and why it's important? I feel like it would be a benefit to the community.
Yeah. So there's a couple things here. This can be used for good or bad. When we're talking about good stuff, it could be a journalist or an investigator setting up accounts to be able to do what they're going to do and make sure that if one of them is breached, then their whole deal doesn't get taken down. And in some cases, maintaining anonymity can be really important. So yeah, we could probably do something on that. But this sort of thing is also often used to set up like harassing accounts or like try to like commit crimes. So we need to be a little bit careful with it, and we probably need to focus it more on like privacy than I don't know, staying like completely anonymous, just because like sometimes we get flack for people who misinterpret that as like how to be anonymous and commit crimes online. So we've learned recently that like when we produce something, it's going to be seen by lots of people, and it's probably going to be misinterpreted by many of them. We have no control over the way they react to that. So we just have to be a little bit cautious on topics like that.
And then for that person that was talking about collaborating,
Twitter.
Twitter.
Everything's on Twitter.
Next question. Or this is more a comment I'm going to respond to. Cool stream, guys. FYI, the clips you have here are out of order and from different seasons of Mr. Robot. Yes, that is intentional. One of the things for the reaction videos is it can't be possibly interpreted as a replacement for actually viewing the show. So I intentionally do that. I try to clump like similar ideas together at least. But yeah.
So wait, for context, this question was about our Hackers React show, which has been really difficult to produce because of copyright claims. So if you haven't heard, we basically have to file like between like 5 to 7 individual copyright claims, sometimes to different claimants, in order to make a single one of these episodes. And we need to do it like 4 to 5 days in advance, sometimes even more, because these people have a really long time to reply to that claim. So no matter how short of a clip we do, we always seem to run into this problem. It's worth it because it's a lot of fun to do, and you guys seem to really enjoy it. So we're going to keep slogging through it. But yeah, we have to do it in a completely different way than the way that we do the normal stream, because we cannot do it live. We have to like premiere it. And then even if we do that, there is the possibility that they will deny the claim, which means we would have to completely trash like a whole section of the episode and basically re-upload it and go through it all over again. So it is a risky business to do, but that is why we scramble the order a bit and try to also like make the screen a little bit smaller and do whatever we can to make it clear to people who are going to be reviewing it that we are not basically like live streaming their movie or their show or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
and also complementary to that is some of y'all said like, oh, you didn't have this scene or that scene. I try to only use scenes that are already on the Mr. Robot YouTube channel, because then it makes it very hard for them to complain, because it's already content they have on their own channel, publicly available. So yeah. That being said, I am basically out of React content, so if y'all want other reaction videos, y'all can supply me with the movie and the clip.
He's lying. I can think of like 7 other scenes from Mr. Robot that we could do, but please do give us additional ideas. Like that everybody keeps saying like Ron's coffee, and like I agree. Like yeah, let's do that. Let's do that scene.
Okay, find me the clip.
It's called Ron's Coffee.
Okay. Okay, I'll look into it.
Okay. So Victor points out, it must really suck having to deal with people who misinterpret your content just because they don't understand it. It doesn't give them license to criticize. Okay, can I share a story with you guys that really makes me mad? So one of the people that I follow on TikTok, because there's not a lot of hacking content on TikTok, is She Networks. And recently, she had an experience very similar to one that I had. So a while ago, I shared a video that was talking about a vulnerability, or not a vulnerability, a misconfiguration in the way that a certain coffee shop's Wi-Fi was set up. And it went, it got a lot of attention. Like it reached 250,000 people in a matter of 12 hours. And somebody, I have a suspicion as to what their age group and type is, but somebody called my company's HR and tried to file an official complaint against me for and they got every single detail wrong. They basically got the company that the video was talking about wrong. They got the platform it was on wrong. So they my company, just trying to do due diligence, attempted to do like a little investigation, found nothing because all the details were wrong, and then concluded this was just a wacky person. Now the person that did this to She Networks actually went and did the same thing, filed a complaint, and even though there was no inappropriate content, the company still was like, yikes, like we very rarely get complaints, like why are we getting complaints against a specific person? And they did their corporate thing, and we're just like, hey, you cannot mention the brand, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. So even though this person is energizing young people, she's like providing a role model for people who might not traditionally see themselves in cybersecurity, and she's also standing up to bullies on the platform all the time. Because somebody couldn't actually like affect her on the platform, they went around and started harassing her work, which is like just so it's really the biggest barrier to getting this sort of content out here for you guys. Is somebody will decide that it's their business to police the internet and decide that what they do not like what you're doing, even though it does not affect them. It's not illegal, it's educational, and it's literally like this industry, and they will go and file a complaint to try to frighten you out of making new content. So I, fortunately I have a really good relationship with my management, and I'm in a position of a lot of trust because I create content that does very well, and I've had to make this call many times, and I tend to play it very safe. But if you are at a different company and they've never heard of you before, and suddenly if someone is filing like an HR complaint, it's really scary and it's really discouraging, and it makes you like not want to continue doing this sort of thing because it brings too much risk and too much anxiety for very little reward, other than just getting other people excited about something that you love. So it sucks to see other creators who are discouraged from making content because of the way that people have been treating them. So if you're on TikTok, please follow She Networks because like after hearing what she went through over the last couple weeks, like it just, for one, reminds me of what I just went through, and for two, like just it's so difficult to make this content sometimes when people misinterpret it and take steps to go out of their way to actually like make you feel like you shouldn't be doing the content because they can't, because there's no legal or really any other way for them to affect you. Like at a certain point, they flag your stuff all the time, it gets reinstated, and then when they can't affect you anymore, they go after your work or something. So the harassment that people have to deal with to make cybersecurity content, especially on platforms like TikTok, is like way above and beyond what the reward is, because you certainly do not make any money doing it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's what is the worst about it, is you get it from every end. Like the content platform is giving you flack, and you constantly have to be treading so carefully, and then also there's so many people that like misinterpret the content. But okay, you ready for the next question?
Yeah, so anyway, that made me really mad, and yeah, don't do that. Like if you don't like someone's content, don't watch it. Like don't like report them to HR. Like
okay, this is more a comment, and I'm going to turn it into a question.
Sure.
I run Parrot on an unmodified Chromebook, and it runs perfectly. 9-hour battery life. What do we think about hacking on Chromebooks? Like, is that a thing that's viable? Is that something we would recommend?
It's sort of, not really. You can. If you got a Chromebook, it's better than not hacking, but you're not going to be cracking anything. You know, like I'm struggling to say like why it's like better or worse than like a Raspberry Pi. Honestly, it comes with a screen, so like you don't need to connect it to anything else. So I would say like it's kind of in like a weird valley between like not cheap enough to be disposable, but not expensive enough to be like nice to work on. So like I would tend to go with like a Raspberry Pi, honestly, before I would go with one, just because it's so much cheaper to fry the Raspberry Pi or have it dedicated to a specific task and like not touch it while you work on like another project. Like any of those things like make a Raspberry Pi a really good option. But if you already have a Chromebook, I'm not gonna say don't. You know, I would just probably not pick it specifically because it's right in that weird valley between like so cheap that, you know, it doesn't matter, you can't crack on it because you can have 5 of them, to so expensive that you expect it to be able to do most of the attacks. Like I just feel like for like networking attacks where you need to be like forwarding traffic and like doing a bunch of like processor intensive stuff, like you might not be able to get enough horsepower out of it for it to be worth it to have something that's more than a Raspberry Pi. But I've never done it, so I don't know. I figure a lot of people are stuck with Chromebooks or might be given Chromebooks by their school that they can dual boot. So if you have one, do it. Like again, I'm struggling to think why it would be worse than a Raspberry Pi. I just think it's not, you know, better enough to warrant the amount of money for the increase. But what do you think?
I seem to recall in the past there were like limitations based on the OS that was running on the Chromebooks that prevented certain things. Like the only way you could use SSH was by like having the Chrome plug-in SSH and stuff like that back in the day. So I guess it depends on like what you're doing. Like if you're fooling around with APIs and stuff, it's probably fine, right? But if you're like trying to crack Wi-Fi passwords, maybe not the best option. But yeah, okay. So next question was, can we react to scenes from the movie Hackers? Yes, we have already reacted to 2 scenes from that. Those were in the first Hacker React, I think. Maybe the second one. But yeah, so we have done that. It's possible we could do one dedicated to the movie Hackers, maybe, if y'all really want to see that. So let us know.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and then Zam is elevating here a very vital question. Is that a VCR over my shoulder?
Of course. We do all of our, I mean, a lot of people are, you know, nerds about like how their computers are built and like they have a preference for a certain type of technology. Well, we've done all the research, you guys, and we've concluded that VCR technology was the peak. So most of the things that we do, actually, this computer, this whole setup is running off of the VCR right behind Michael. If you want to know how that's possible,
we stream from the VCR.
Yeah,
and we record to it. It's the finest resolution.
Yeah, so we figured out how to use this common VCR to run our whole production, 4K production setup. So if you want to know how that works, we'll never tell you because it's our proprietary secret. But yeah, that is a VCR.
Okay.
Good eye.
Onward and upward. More serious question here. Hey guys, this will be my first time attending Defcon and Black Hat. I'm very new to cybersecurity. It was something I was always interested in, but never pursued. Could you guys please share some advice on what to do to best use my time wisely at the events?
That's a really good question. By the way, also hello to Brandon. Nice of you to
I was
join
going
us.
to preface this with we are not attending this year due to health concerns, due
Yeah.
to the Delta variant.
Yeah, so we had planned to go to both Black Hat and DEF CON. We were going to do a workshop at DEF CON, which we canceled, right?
Yes.
Right, okay. And then also we were going to be at the booth at Black Hat doing a game, and then as things got worse, like a lot of people that are much smarter than me ended up canceling, and I was like, well, okay, if I'm not even going to get to see the friends I was hoping to see, then it's kind of not worth it anymore. So we're not going to be there, unfortunately, but we miss all of you guys, and we really wish that we could be. So if you are going to Black Hat, then there's still lots that you can potentially get out of the event. When I first started going, I was press, which gave me the unique ability to, have like the press room to decompress in. I was able to go into any event and check it out. So I got to go all through the event and really learned a lot about what's cool and what is kind of a waste of time. I'm not gonna talk too much smack about the actual like conferences and stuff, or the actual individual presentations, but I will say the best place to go is, for me anyway, the Arsenal. I think Black Hat Arsenal is super cool. It's where you can meet really awesome people like Patrick Wardle, who make lots of really awesome open source tools for people running Mac OS or other systems. And I think that Black Hat Arsenal is a great way to learn what kinds of tools are kind of up and coming, and keep an eye on things that are performing really well. And I think I did several interviews based off of people that I met at Black Hat Arsenal. So Black Hat Arsenal is one of my favorite things. And then some of the peripheral events like B-Sides ended up I did not go myself, but I heard really excellent feedback from people who did go, such as Michael went, right?
Yeah, I went to some of them. B-Sides is really good quality content, and it kind of bridges that like little gap between the end of Black Hat and DEF CON. That tends to be like that, and I also really like Sky Talks at DEF CON. I don't know if they're doing that this year, but that's where they do the, like, you can't record this. Like, I don't know. It just gives it a different atmosphere and feel. That being said, I did create an article several years ago on attending DEF CON. So you might look that up.
Without looking like a noob or spending a fortune.
Yeah. But anyway.
Well, let's finish up with DEF CON. So DEF CON is much less corporate than Black Hat, obviously. And if you're going, then the number one thing I would say to check out would be villages. Villages are basically like their own little environment. They're focused on a specific area. They have their own hosts. They have their own talks. They have their own schedules. They have their own badges and challenges. So if you're interested in a specific niche of hacking, then I highly recommend checking out the various villages that are focused around that, because you could spend the entire conference just going from village to village, or even finding one that really resonates with you and taking part in all the stuff that they have planned. The conference is literally too big to be able to experience everything, so you kind of just have to gracefully fall through it and like pick up the parts that you can. I usually don't go to talks. The reason I don't go to talks is because most of them are available online later. So if I get a dud, I haven't wasted my time. Because there's 7 other things I could have been doing during that talk. And I learned that the hard way a couple of times. So if the talk is recorded, I wouldn't go to it unless you really, really, really want to ask questions in the audience. If it's a Sky Talk, aka it's not recorded, then it can be worth it to go, just because you won't see it anywhere else. And I've seen some really good Sky Talks. I've also seen some stinkers. So I would say that the best way to go and start meeting people and participate is find a village that really resonates with you, that you can ask questions, and start talking to people there. Because again, like, they have enough events in most of the villages to keep you occupied the entire conference if that's where you want to be. But also, make sure to explore them, because you might find a village you never thought you were interested in that's just super well run. Like, I ran into the Blue Team village, and I was like, not that into Blue Team stuff, but it turns out I was really into the Blue Team people, because they were really awesome. And I really enjoyed talking with them and getting to know what they were doing and seeing all the events they had scheduled. They really put a lot of work into their village, and it made me want to do more stuff with them. So I made a lot of really great connections by checking out villages I might otherwise not expect to enjoy, just because they might be run really, really well by people who represent what they do exceptionally well and make you a little bit more interested. So that's my advice on getting the most out of both DEF CON and Black Hat. If you do go, make sure to stay safe, but enjoy it for me, because I wish I could be there so much. But just because I'm on, Nullbyte and Hack5, there's really no way to prevent a lot of just lots of interaction. So unfortunately, I'm going to be staying back this year.
Some more specific points I would have is, keep in mind this year is going to be very, very different from any normal DEF CON. it's going to be scaled back and more distance and etc. So do keep that in mind this year. You might also want to check it out in future years, regardless of what your experience this year is. As Cody said, don't spread yourself too thin. Like, focus on something, whether that be a village. Village is a great opportunity to meet like-minded people that are interested in the specific hacking area that you are. If you do go to talks, remember LineCon is a thing. You will be in line for a very long time, potentially for the more popular talks, so keep that in mind. Don't let that stop you if you really want to go, but keep in mind that it will be recorded. If you do stand in line a long time, socialize, get to know people around you. I think the thing that gets glossed over a lot with Defcon is the most valuable part is meeting the other people, meeting the other hackers, go to the parties at night, take yourself outside of your normal comfort zone and meet these people, and you'll make lifelong friendships.
Yeah, that's how we met, actually. Yeah. And also the best way to get around LineCon or waiting in line is to send Michael. So if you have access to Michael, make sure to send him to stand in line.
Find your own personal Michael to stand in line for you.
He'll talk people's ears off the whole time. He doesn't even care. He loves it.
Okay. Did we have another question? Yes, we did. What do you think? What do you do with the stickers when you get a new laptop?
Oh my gosh, that makes me so sad. So my last MacBook Pro had some sort of issue with it that they're like, oh yeah, sick dude, guess what? This is going to be great. We're going to replace the whole top half of your computer. It's for free. It's going to be so wonderful. I'm like, wait, what about all these stickers? They're like, yeah, we're going to keep those. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, that's ours now. It's like, I can't have it. Like, no, not if you want us to fix it. So I lost my whole last palette of stickers all to the Apple Store, which, I mean, whatever. If someone gets you a MacBook Pro, you put stickers on it, I guess losing them isn't the worst thing. But they were really good. I like them a lot. So I do like a clean slate and the ability to immediately sticker it up within a couple hours and then start expanding on it. But yeah, it was kind of sad to lose some of my very best stickers to the life cycle of the Apple Store.
Inform y'all, he has a chest of stickers.
Oh yeah, I was ready to
office.
Go. I have a box of forbidden stickers that we don't ship out to people that are for just if I get a new computer. So if you give me a new computer, it's going to be completely wrapped in weird German hacker stickers within a matter of an hour. Just because I'm very ready to go on that. But yeah, wrapping your computer with stickers to let people in the coffee shop around you that you're not into Rust or whatever, you're into breaking computers is something I very much appreciate, because it prevents people from walking over to you and having a conversation about development when all you know how to do is break computers.
That being said, you have had some interesting experiences at co-working spaces with people identifying your stickers.
Oh yeah, sometimes people will see my stickers and decide that I am just a criminal that's boastful, and they will report me to the co-working staff and tell them that they need to check out what I'm up to because I have too many wireless network adapters. Which was a really dumb way that some tech bros tried to tattle on us one time. So I feel like it was the stickers that probably provoked that, although I was working with a lot of wireless network adapters that day.
Okay. That's all the questions I have pre-prepared.
Oh boy. All right, everyone. So if you have any questions related to, also if anybody attended the webinar that I did last week that took up my whole soul to present, we're going to be doing pieces of it on the live stream, I think, because it was really successful and cool. I think there was almost 300 people that watched that, which would have been stressful if I could think about anything other than just getting it right. But it was really interesting because we used Wiggle Wi-Fi to identify the office Wi-Fi network name of a targeted company. In this case, we did Cyberdyne Systems, of course. And then we used that as a template to be able to detect nearby devices that had joined that network before. So imagine going to a conference and looking for Cyberdyne employees so we could execute some sort of attack. So once we did that, then we did a half handshake attack to actually brute force the password to the office Wi-Fi network, so we could maybe do something like send a package to the office that was pre-programmed to connect to the Wi-Fi and attempt to do some intrusion or give us an access point to that network. Or it could also allow us to force their employee's device to connect to our fake malicious network and start feeding them phishing pages to gain access to their accounts. So it was It was a presentation that was really difficult to do because there were a lot of moving parts, but in the end it was a lot of fun because I think people understood it, and it woke them up that, storing a bunch of open Wi-Fi networks or even having a weak Wi-Fi password stored in your phone is bad, because an attacker can abuse it in various ways. So if you have any questions about that, it was a really fun presentation, and I don't think many people realize that, yeah, your phone can just, give you up like that, let people know where you've been in the past.
Yeah, if you'll have any other questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. If you want to, we can talk more about like Defcon and stuff and what you would recommend doing there. So what's your favorite village?
My favorite village is I have a couple actually. The packet hacking village I really enjoy. The crypto village. Not cryptozoology. Cryptography. Yeah.
How disappointing.
Crypto Privacy Village is another one of my favorites, and then
is QueerCon a village?
No, they're not. The IoT Hacking Village. So those three were my favorites. The IoT Hacking Village was super cool. I think we were actually scheduled to do like a workshop with them. Unfortunately, we can't because we're not going to be there. But hacking IoT devices is a really interesting subject. There's lots of cool stuff you can experiment with. There was also the biohacking village where
isn't that one of the new ones?
No, it's been around for a couple years.
Okay.
I remember last time Kyle got an implant in his hand
slit open and put it. They inject RFID tokens like in the web of your hand here, and you can use it. The edition we saw several years ago had a, I guess, bug that it could be permanently written to and then frozen so that it couldn't be written to again.
Yep. Yeah, you can make it read-only. So if somebody was malicious and they wanted to render your implant useless, there was a way for them to write a command to it that would just lock it with the last data that was written to it. So it's a pretty painful lesson to have to dig like a sensor out of your hand, or like a chip out of your hand because someone decides they want to lock it for fun. But then again, if you put a vulnerable chip inside of your hand at a hacker conference, what do you expect?
Okay, so the one that can't be hacked though is I don't think they do it on their fingers, but some people, like on their earlobes, will put in magnets, and you can actually give yourself magnetic sense. Because basically nerve endings start attaching to the magnet, and it can feel when it gets pulled. So obviously you can't have an MRI or anything.
That's horrible.
But also people were asking how can they get access to that webinar you were discussing.
Okay, so the webinar is called... okay, so I can't give you a direct link to it because it's gated, which means you need to sign up for the Varonis, I think, replay in order to watch it. But if you look on the Varonis website, I think it's like how hackers use open Wi-Fi to target employees, something like that. I'll try to find like the exact wording on it. And I believe you guys can like sign up with your email, and then it gives you access. You don't need to purchase it. And also, we're going to be doing the content of the webinar on the live stream, so we probably won't go as in depth as some of the stuff we do there, because that was just like an hour of straight content, like straight to the point, slides and everything. But we can do sections of it and kind of go a little bit more in depth, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So.
I think we're going to put that one out next Wednesday. How do you find hidden networks?
So hidden Wi-Fi networks are a feature that a lot of people think enhances their security. But unfortunately, it actually does a couple of things. For one, it doesn't work. It doesn't actually make it impossible for somebody to find out the network name. In fact, it's still relatively simple to do. And it also makes your phone constantly call out the name of that hidden network forever. So everywhere that you go, it's always going to be calling out that network name, meaning even if your phone's manufacturer has made it so that the device is randomizing its MAC address to avoid being tracked, it suddenly becomes very easy to track because it's constantly screaming this network name. So if you want to make your phone less private and secure, then you should definitely set up a hidden network.
If you want to be my mom and think she's being super private by setting up a hidden network.
Yeah, basically this is what I can do. If your device is broadcasting that, oh my gosh, I've connected to hidden net over and over and over, I can be like, okay, I'm hidden net. And it's going to be like, really? And it's going to send over its hashed version of the password. And I'm going to be like, ha, no, psych, I'm not. And I'm going to take that handshake, I'm going to crack it to get the password, and then I'm going to put up a real version of that network, and your device is just going to connect to me, and I can redirect you however I want. I can look over your shoulder and see what you're doing. I can force your device to connect to me anytime. So it is basically letting hackers know, for one, hey, I'm here, and it's still me, And for two, this is how you can try to get this device to connect to you. Now, as for how to reveal a hidden network like on location, well, if there's any device connected to it, you can just disconnect. And one of the parts that needs to be exchanged when the two devices connect is the name of the network. So forcing a reconnection is the best way to reveal the network name of a hidden Wi-Fi network. So
yeah,
not very secure and not very hidden after all.
Have we looked at Evil Limiter? This tool also tries to throttle a Wi-Fi connection speed. Yes, we have looked at that. We have a live stream on that. I believe I posted the link to that in the chats. Yeah, did you have any further commentation on Evil Limiter?
Yeah, so Evil Limiter works across, I think it works across LAN or WLAN. So, like, you're able to use it wirelessly or on wired devices.
Yeah, I think that is correct. It does only work on IPv4.
Right. So I think that it's using some like other traffic shaping mechanisms in order to accomplish basically the same thing. But yes, Evil Limiter is a really cool program. It does work, and we've used it before to be able to limit the speed of certain devices on the network. Of course, you can also just throttle someone completely and make it so that they're not really able to resolve anything. And this isn't using deauthentication. It's using like what they're calling traffic shaping. So being able to like tell certain devices the speed they can go while telling other devices they can go faster is the technique that they're using in order to deliver that effect. Now, I'm not sure exactly what layer of the traffic they're operating on, but it is an interesting tool, and you should definitely check it out if you're interested in this. Although, again, I'm not exactly sure if it would work on the outside of a network. So really the difference here is on Evil Limiter, you need to be on the inside of a network in order for it to work. You need to know the network password. You need to be connected. The advantage of using beacon frames is I can be on the outside of a network sending these poison beacon frames that say that the speed limit of the network is incredibly slow, and I can affect a device without ever needing to know the password by telling it that it needs to go incredibly slowly when it's broadcasting. So a little bit of a difference, and you can basically use the beacon tool against any network as opposed to one you've already joined.
Have you heard of Rumble Network Asset Discovery Tool created by Metasploit's creator H.D. Moore? New way of net discovery, more accurate, lightweight, and persists through device IP change.
No, I'd be curious to know how it's persisting through device IP change, unless it's just tracking MAC addresses, which is pretty simple. But no, I haven't. I think I might have heard of it at some point, but I've never tried it, and I'm not sure what its reputation in the community is. So I'd have to check that and do my standard GitHub, health check to see when it was updated, how many stars it has, whether or not it's backdoored with something. But yeah, it would be really interesting. And someone is also reporting that Evil Limiter is broken again. I'm not really surprised, honestly. It seems like a project that goes down a lot.
Yeah. How many times have you been hacked that you've discovered?
Once.
Is this the Wi-Fi one?
No, well, I mean like ever, because like there was when I was like 18 trying to run a website, like I definitely I think the hosting provider that I was like part of like got taken down, so I guess that technically counts. But really, like the one time I can recall clearly is when somebody who was in the same building as the work I was at did a Wi-Fi phishing attack against our office and made it look like our router was down and needed a update, but actually was trying to get free Wi-Fi. And kudos to them. We weren't using all that capacity, and frankly, like if they wanted the game for free, like I support that. So a year later, when I found that attack and was able to demonstrate it myself, I could see that we had been on the receiving end of this. And it was really weird to know like that exact screen that you were using in a demo, because you had seen it at work before whilst giving up the password. So it definitely was a vote for, does this work in the real world? Like, yes, it absolutely does. And that was honestly one of the experiences that made me want to lean more into Wi-Fi phishing as a way of getting around needing to do cracking, because like bringing that to a smaller and smaller platform has been really interesting to see what's possible to do with a very like small amount of money.
Yeah. I got one of my video game accounts hacked once, and that's what corrupted me. I was a poor innocent young thing playing World of Warcraft, working on my account, and then it got hacked because I got phished. And yeah, then I was like, you know what? Now it's time to start botting.
Colonel Panic asked, did they use Wi-Fi Fisher? I believe they used Airgeddon.
Okay, how did you learn pointers in C++?
You're making a lot of assumptions.
C++ is the devil's work and should not be learned. No. C++ is great, but it has been difficult for me to learn, so I've learned Python.
Yeah. I took a year of computer science, and we did not focus on pointers. So we had a teacher who made a lot of sports analogy and bluffed his way through a lot of the explanations, so I had to rely on fellow students to get through that first year. So, sorry, can't answer your question on that one. My language of choice is still also Python, even though I know enough C++ to do Arduino and stuff like that, but I'm quite rusty with it.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. What age were you when you thought hacking was amazing?
You go first.
I think the first time I hacked anything or, so when I was 19, I learned how to do enough hacking to get myself out of a situation, but that wasn't really, I didn't really find hacking amazing. I was just like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
The first time I really thought hacking was amazing was when I got free Wi-Fi after figuring out the way that Wi-Fi worked. As soon as I figured out how that worked on a basic level, I was like, oh, this is not that hard. I thought this was some sort of super encrypted signal the military made that no human could ever figure out just by looking at it. But I was like, no, this is not that hard. Okay, I can just leave my computer here for 4 days. It'll capture handshakes, and then boom, I'm able to get free internet. All right. So I think I was 24 maybe when the first time I did this, and I decided that this was something I wanted to learn more about. But prior to that, doing anything from keyboard intercepts to just basic hacking stuff was just a survival thing. So
yeah, I think for me, when I was around 16, I started botting RuneScape. I don't know if that counts as hacking though. That's more just
cheating.
More just video game cheating. But I only did that for a couple of months and just played around with. It wasn't something I was amazed about the hacking side. It was just an so means, right? And then I think when I was 21 or 22 is when I got more interested. I watched the Defcon documentary. I started trying to learn to code in Python, and really got started off. Okay, my question was, what's better, Mac OS or Windows, and who makes the better hardware?
Better for what?
This is a flame war. Just end it. Is it?
Oh no, but really better for what? For hacking?
I guess hacking.
Okay,
sure,
well if you're hacking what? If you're using Linux programs for hacking, then Mac OS is better because you already have a Linux-like thing, and you have Homebrew, which is mostly ported over a lot of these Linux tools. So I can use BetterCap and Wireshark and Kismet and all the other things that I would want to use on a Linux system, I can use on this. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Are you hacking Windows computers? Well, then this is absolutely the worst choice. If you're hacking Windows computers, then provided you're not doing Wi-Fi stuff, you could use Windows subsystem for Linux and arguably be able to do some Linux stuff on that. In practicality, can you actually get away with anything interesting? No, it sucks. So I don't really... I don't use Windows a lot personally, just because there's alternatives for a Mac OS version of most Windows programs, and because it's not Linux-like enough for me to use any of the Linux programs that I need to use without just running a virtual machine, which defeats the purpose. So objectively, for just doing hacking stuff in general, a lot of these tools are Linux tools, which means it's really nice to have access to the ability to use them without needing to launch a virtual machine.
You heard it here. He says Mac OS is the better OS.
No. I'm not done. If you are not having someone buying you the computer, then you can't, and you're relegated to running virtual machines when you want to do Linux properly, then a Windows system will work just fine. But I would say you won't be able to run a lot of the more interesting Linux programs without doing a virtual machine on Windows. So if you're just doing Linux stuff, then the Mac OS has a slight advantage. Again, if someone else is buying it for you, that's definitely an advantage. But if you're paying for it yourself, then you can get away with just about whatever you want by dual booting a Windows computer or by running a virtual machine. So, it really depends on what you want to do. And again, I can hack a Linux computer, and I can operate Linux tools on this, but I cannot very easily like emulate Windows stuff unless, again, I do a virtual machine. So it really depends on what you're planning on hacking and which kinds of tools you're going to be using. Because there's lots of PowerShell stuff that like, this is the wrong computer to be trying to learn that on. So it depends on your targets, and that's why there will never be a good answer to this. A lot of anytime that I say the Mac OS is better, it's also from the lens of like, I have had my employers buy me a Mac OS and I've not had to purchase one in a while.
Yeah.
And that is a big reason why I use it. If I had to pay for this, I would rather buy a used Honda. So be aware of that. And I would also be 10 times as angry when it crashes for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
So
the person did clarify they were more concerned about price to performance. This is why I like building my own desktops. You can't really build a laptop, so I'm just gonna say like if you're gonna do a laptop, then just do whatever you want to. But as far as like building, like you can build a really nice, like I can build like a super machine for the price of this laptop, like Threadripper, like. It could run circles around this laptop. Yeah, it wouldn't be mobile, etc. And that's why I like Windows.
If you can find the parts.
Oh, they're available now. They stopped the crypto miners.
I'm sure that'll never happen
again. Yeah, I sort of like Windows better for that because you can do a Hackintosh, but you know.
Yeah, so
it's like
the point is like messier. Mac OS systems are overpriced for what they give you, but at the same time they're Linux-like and they're able to do a lot of stuff that you would want to do as a hacker. So they're nice. They're just frankly nice computers if you can afford it easily, or if someone else is buying it for you. If not, then Windows computers will work just fine. Especially if you're going to do something like dual booting them or making sure that you have access to a virtual machine. The problem is just being able to do wireless hacking stuff. Now, I will say macOS, the newest macOS systems absolutely suck for Wi-Fi hacking stuff. They are the worst. For whatever reason, it doesn't even let you easily do Wi-Fi hacking stuff in a virtual machine. It is a nightmare to work with, and I have to use a just straight up Linux computer for it. So sometimes macOS is not the best for doing hacking stuff, especially some of the newer stuff. Like, yikes.
Okay. So we got 3 questions here. Okay, first one: are handshakes detectable?
That is not what the person asked.
Are capturing handshakes detectable?
All right. So there's some follow-up questions for that. There's multiple different methods to capture a Wi-Fi handshake. So one of them is to just sit there and wait for a device to connect to the network naturally. There's no way to detect that. You are sitting there and passively just listening. Another way of capturing a handshake is to kick the device off the network momentarily with a deauthentication packet, and then when they reconnect, capture the handshake. That is detectable. Another way of doing this is to create a fake network that looks like the correct network and then have a device connect to that network and then basically capture that half handshake. This is semi-detectable. It doesn't look like an attack because you're basically just creating a network that has the same name, but technically it would be detectable if someone was looking out for that or was monitoring like network traffic and went back and played through it. It doesn't look as it's much more subtle because it doesn't look like an attack, but it is detectable. So one of those 3 ways is completely silent and completely invisible. So if you're doing passive handshake capture, it's going to take a lot longer because you have to wait for someone to connect, but it is totally undetectable. If you're doing active like solicitation for handshakes, you're slapping them away from the network and waiting for them to reconnect to grab the handshake, then that is detectable. And if you're creating a fake network and having them connect, then that unfortunately is also detectable, but is much less sketchy and typical of this sort of attack than doing the straight up deauthentication. So
okay, we are basically out of time.
No, we're not.
So if you'll have any more questions, be sure to
time.
drop them in
Guys,
the comments
we have plenty
below.
Of time. We got like 8 minutes. We're ready to rock. You got more questions? Drop them in.
Okay, you forced me to do this, Cody. The fans want to know what our ages are. They demanded to know what our ages are.
I don't see that question.
It's higher up. It's higher up. So Cody.
No, the question was, what age did you become interested in hacking?
Yeah, but then after that.
I don't have to answer that.
Okay, I am 26 because I am not ashamed of my age. Okay, and then also they wanted to know if they could rent me for Defcon.
Please. I will actually pay I will actually pay you to take Michael for Defcon.
Cool. And then also there are some unfounded rumors about me floating around in the chat, which are untrue. Okay, and then what else did we have? Do we have any last questions?
Yeah, we have plenty. So are you guys annoyed about the current situation with semiconductors? Yeah, it's annoying to not be able to source parts. So right now, I'm also working on a hardware design with a friend to be able to create some of these like CTFs that I was talking about. And yeah, it is really obnoxious to have certain parts just be completely out of service. So fortunately, I bought like 300 D1 minis a couple months ago. So we're still in stock for the core parts for these PCBs, but not being able to find certain things that allow you to do more complex designs really limits what you can create. So yeah, it's definitely annoying. Let's see. So while capturing a handshake via simple Wi-Fi scan and to run a target, would those be detectable? Yeah. So Wi-Fi, if I remember Wi-Fi properly, it throws the kitchen sink at stuff. Like it doesn't just sit there and passively listen. It will actually de-authenticate and like try all this other stuff in order to try to get a handshake. So yeah, there's another way of getting a handshake from a network that doesn't have a device connected, and that's the PMKID. This is still like relatively new. I mean, it's been out for a while, but not everyone's heard of it. So this is another way you can get a handshake. This one does, I think it submits like an authentication request and then grabs the crackable hash from that. So it is still an active method of extracting a handshake from a network, and it is still detectable. So most of what Wi-Fi is going to do will be detectable because it's designed to work very quickly. Same thing with my favorite script, bside-ng. Like that is going to be extremely detectable, like because it's just doing everything it possibly can to hack every network within range. So Wi-Fi and bside-ng are very detectable scripts and have pretty easy to identify behavior. In fact, I modified a version of the deauth detector, which is a program that runs on the D1 Mini or ESP8266 to show you when deauthentication or disassociation packets are being directed against a network. And there's a specific patterns of colors that would flash on the lights when I was using bside-ng versus Wi-Fi, and I could tell which one someone was using by looking at the pattern of packets that was hitting the network. So these are pretty predictable and pretty easy to detect when they're in use. So just realize that those particular types of attacks are loud, as we call it. So you would definitely want to be spoofing your MAC address and only doing it against devices that you have permission to do.
Okay, and final question, do we have a Patreon? No, we do not have a Patreon. We do have a website. You can find hack.gay that has all the links to our various content. We have several courses on what platform?
you can buy Udemy classes.
Udemy.
You can also pick up hardware. It's all on hack.gay. So if you want to support us, we appreciate it. But we do not have a Patreon. We like to give you something in exchange for your money,
Yeah. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we are out of time.
Is that your outro?
No, that is me prompting you to give an outro.
All right, everyone. It's been great answering your questions. If you have any that did not get answered, then make sure to drop them on the YouTube channel, and we will answer them next week. Or, of course, you can just join us next week where we'll do another Q&A. It's been super fun, and if you want to see any more great content, make sure to check out the Verona's brand channel, where you can check out the threat update with our friend Killian, where he goes over how real companies are responding to threats. So that's going to take us out for today. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.